back to Walton Racing in episode 2 of the Factory 565 Coupe build. Today's video is all about the front suspension. We're covering steering rack, shocks, coilovers, upper control arms, tie rods, spindles, hubs, rotors, calipers.
Beans, greens, potatoes, tomatoes.
Whoa, not yet, Pastor Shirley, not yet. I know you're ready to go, but it's barely March. If you haven't already, go check out episode 1. It'll give you the background on this project and the install of the front lower control arms.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
First, we need to get the power steering rack installed. Before we can do that, there's some bushings that need to be fitted. Now that the bushings are in, we can fit the rack in its mounting points. It gave us a bit of a struggle at first, but once everything lined up, it dropped right into place. With a few nuts and bolts, the steering rack is now securely installed. Next, we move on to assembling the coilovers. After watching fellow YouTuber Ocala Garage and hearing some strange noises during his coil sleeve installation, we were curious about what our own would sound like.
ASMR suspension.
After the sleeves were installed, lithium grease was added to the dowel and washers, and they were set in place. Once that was done, we added the spring and hat onto the shocks and spun the spring seats back up to snug everything up. Snap rings were then installed to the hat. Finally, the set screws were added to the spring seat. The shock assembly is now complete. Now we're ready to install the front shocks. There are 2 sets of mounting holes, lower for street height, top for race car.
$9 grand hole shot.
While the Tim the Toolman Taylor in us wants to go full race mode, we're going to start with the more conservative street height to make things a little easier driving on public roads. Up next is the upper ball joints. These are screw in versus press in, so they'll need a little red Loctite before installing. We didn't have a ball joint socket, so we followed Factory 5's instructions to tighten it with a vise, using the arm for leverage. We made sure to take our time so we didn't mar up the ball joint. Okay, upper control arms are ready for install. To install the upper control arms, one of the inner bolts needs to be removed so the cross shaft can make it behind the coilover. The bolt was reinstalled and the cross shaft was slotted into the mounting flanges. Next, we set up a rough alignment. While it may look precise to the untrained eye, this is just meant to be good enough to get us down the road to an alignment shop. Once everything was dialed in where we wanted it, the jam nuts were tightened. Now we're ready to install the spindles and hubs. First, the spindle was inserted into the lower ball joint. It was at this point we realized we didn't have a high enough torque wrench to set the spindle nut later.
We're missing something.
Dang it.
So here we are at Home Depot for the 80 millionth time. I'm pretty sure if we were there any more often they would charge us rent. We were able to get the right torque wrench and picked up some other things we needed later. We got the hub put on and got ready to torque the castle nuts. The spindle kept spinning when trying to torque the castle nuts. We read on the Factory 5 forums that someone used a 2x4 to hold it in place, so that's what we did. We finally got to using that torque wrench we bought at Home Depot, and then this happened.
You was. I feel like you should be lower. Did you? Yeah, buddy. Woo.
Both the spindle nuts were torqued to 250 foot-pounds, and the dust covers were put on. Now we're on to the tie rods. Those get spun on, then we measured 53 and 1/16 center to center to get a rough setup. This will get dialed in later when an alignment is done. All that's left is to tighten the castle nuts and install the cotter pins. Now on to one of my favorite parts of the car, the rotors and calipers. First, the caliper bracket needs to be installed. The Wilwood rotors that we're using are 2-piece, so the hats need to be connected to the rotors. What are you doing over here?
Stop doing that.
Stop doing that.
Stop doing that.
Now that we've refocused, the bolts are hit with a little red Loctite and torqued to spec.
You can't do that! You can't fake the achievements! They have to be approved!
Now the rotors and calipers are ready to be installed. Before we can do that, register rings need to be added to the hub. You'll see these rotors have instructions for safety wire. We'll tackle this later, as I have a friend who's going to assist us with that task. When installing the calipers, there are shims used to center up the rotor in the caliper. You'll see Tyler using these to line them up.
So I busted out my N64 yesterday,
Yeah.
and I booted up the Star Wars Pod Racer, and guess what?
What?
I didn't have the jumper pack. Do you remember that?
Oh, yeah.
I was like, dang it!
Dang it.
Yeah,
gotta
I
go
was
get
like,
that.
no!
Alright, that's it for episode 2. Thank you all so much for your support. We didn't think we'd hit 100 subs, let alone do that in 3 weeks, so we appreciate you all for helping us hit that milestone. Thanks again, and we'll see you in the next one.